Amanda Radke is a fifth-generation rancher and agricultural literacy speaker from Mitchell, South Dakota. She travels the country promoting agricultural literacy in schools and professional organizations and hosts a podcast titled The Heart of Rural America that explores the stories and challenges of American farmers and ranchers. She is a passionate advocate for agriculture, and we were able to catch up with her for an interview at a chapter meeting of the Nebraska Cattlemen she presented at.
Hi everyone, I'm McKenna Fisher with the Animal Advocate, here today with Amanda Radke. Amanda is pretty big in the ag literacy scene, does a lot of speaking tours, and really pushes for ag literacy in schools. Would you like to talk a little bit about your background and how you got into this business?
Sure. So I grew up on a cattle ranch in Mitchell, South Dakota, and got started writing children's books. I just saw a need for it. There was a movie called Barnyard that had come out on Disney. I think it was Disney. But it was the cow walked on his back legs and he had an udder and he was a dude. And
I remember that show from when I was a kid.
The farmer was the bad guy kind of, and it just really frustrated me that surely there must be movies or books or cartoons about agriculture that actually were accurate, and there really wasn't. And so I wrote my first book, Levi's Lost Calf, to kind of be the antidote to that. So a rule with my books is the animals never talk, it's always the humans, and we highlight the heroes of the story, which are the farmers and the ranchers, and we show kids how they are stewards of the land and the animals.
So far, Amanda has written 8 children's books focusing on different aspects of agriculture and farm and ranch life that educate youth on what the industry is really about. Her books can be found in the libraries of public schools across the country.
So Amanda, while you're going around all these schools, I know you've been to a lot of these big city areas where a lot of kids don't really understand agriculture, where their food comes from. What are some common misconceptions you would say you encounter in these kinds of areas?
But I would say right now the cow fart thing is just everywhere, and it's ridiculous because it's not grounded in reality or science. And so to me it's very simple. The U.S. beef industry contributes less than 4% of total greenhouse gases. People like to think if they skip the cheeseburger they can save the planet, but if everyone were to go meatless on Mondays, it would reduce our carbon footprint by 0.26%. And so I say if people want to eat their way out of climate change, we could maybe focus on the fact that 40% of our food we grow in this country ends up in landfills, wasted.
So from a producer perspective, what would you say these individuals in the industry need to be doing differently to better promote their work or to kind of counteract this misinformation going around?
I guess my just best advice to you, if I could add, it would just be yourself. You know, everyone does it a different way, and people will try to say, like, to be the best advocate, you need to say X, Y, Z. But I have found, you know, you're going to reach the people, like you're probably going to reach young people right now, or when you're in a different season of life like me, I have a lot of moms reach out to me. And it's like, just be yourself, show up, be transparent and honest and authentic, and you're going to find the people who really resonate with the stories you have to share. And along the way, you're going to build that trust and alleviate probably a lot of concerns that they have about stuff that they're reading in the news that just isn't true.
For sure.
So the great thing is we have the truth on our side. We have all the leverage in the world. We have the land, we have the resources, we have the know-how to feed ourselves and to feed the rest of the world. And you know, you asked about storytelling specifically, but part of storytelling is realizing we're losing 1,300 cow-calf operations a year because there's so much pressure that's really hard to make a living. And yet we not only need to go out and tell our story because we want the voting public to understand what we do, we need to go tell our story because when we do that, we can earn a premium for all the hard work that we're doing back on the land.
Yeah, and I know so many consumers are concerned about buying their beef or their other meat products from these big corporations. And so they're trying to get these legislations passed to kind of counteract those effects. But what they're actually doing is harming these small producers because these big corporations have a lot more capability of adapting to these conditions.
Yep, a lot of these regulations just get so burdensome that a family farm cannot sustain it. They cannot keep up with some of these demands that are being made. Like in the pork industry, the animal rights activists started with, you got to add a couple extra inches to a gestation crate. And then it was the poultry, you know, the cages aren't the right size. And then slowly but surely, the little families go out of business and all that's left is the big guys. And I'm not saying big is bad.
No.
But I believe that to have a nation that's secure and free, we have to have a really robust, really diverse food supply. And that means having as many families on the land doing the work as we possibly can. And that's how we kind of mitigate some of the risks and vulnerabilities and make sure that everybody has access to food. Yeah, we have a great story to tell. And I think if people saw the heart of what we do, they would fall in love with what we do. And that's why I started my podcast, The Heart of Rural America, because I just want to introduce people to all these wonderful family farms and ranches that I meet in my travels. And it's like, we can talk about food policy and agriculture all day long, but at the end of the day, I think the real fight is fighting for the people here in rural America.
Amanda and her family are passionate about educating the public about the true stories of American agriculturalists. Between the books, podcasts, and the involvement of her children on her speaking and social media platforms, the entire Radke family is involved in Amanda's quest to promote the truth of agriculture.
I know there's a lot of confusion surrounding the terms animal welfare and animal rights.
Yeah.
Could you maybe clarify the difference between those terms?
Sure. So the animal rights extremists, they really truly believe that a dog, a cow, a person, they're all the same. They should have the same rights. A dog should be a canine American. It shouldn't be property, and that they should have their own citizenship. Whereas animal welfare is truly the stewardship of the animals, of ensuring animals have proper shelter, nutrition, access to water, a good veterinarian program. And so what we do in agriculture is we're stewards of these animals. We are responsible for animal husbandry and their overall welfare. And when it gets tricky is when it kind of morphs into this thing that no one should own animals, that animals should just be liberated and free. And it sounds extreme, like people might hear this and think, nobody thinks that way. And yet these animal rights organizations are some of the largest lobbying groups in this country, and they go state by state, just chipping away at our ability to own our animals as we see fit. And so to me, it's ultimately a private property rights issue. Here's an example. In Chicago, the city council, under the kind of coercion of these animal rights groups, they were able to ban horse carriage rides, which those are 100-plus-year-old businesses, agritourism really, and all of a sudden these families that could make a living by giving people a horse carriage ride around the city were banned from doing business. And so, as a rancher, it's like, well, that's not me, or I'm not in rodeo, or I don't have a horse carriage business, or I'm not in the fur business or the wool business, or whatever is being attacked. And yet it sets a precedent that can be applied back to livestock. And so that's why I think it's so important to pay attention to what these activist groups are doing.
This is why it's so important to be aware of what's happening in the agriculture industry as a whole, whether you're a producer or a consumer. We're all in this together, no matter how dissimilar our livelihoods may be. The legislative acts passed banning carriage rides could use the same logic to ban all animal labor, then animal production, then animal ownership. As the saying goes, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. It's up to all of us to understand the laws we're voting on and advocate for each other.
Well, are there any parting words you'd like to share?
I'd just like to congratulate you on this show and what you're doing in your efforts to share the agricultural story. I think seeing young people in agriculture who are willing to work hard and kind of go the extra mile and do the things it takes to really get the word out there, it's commendable and it's exciting. And so I'm cheering you on and look forward to watching many episodes just like this.
Well, we really appreciate having you here with us. It's been great talking to you. Once again, this is Amanda Radke, and I'm McKenna Fisher with the Animal Advocate. Thanks for tuning in.